Hey, my name is Colby, and today I'm going to be doing a little tutorial on using MediaPipe and using that to trigger sound. Here's what that looks like. Some of my artist inspirations for this are Imogen Heap and Julep MP3. I'm going to walk you through a couple of the most important parts of my network, and we'll recreate one of those in a moment. So just as an overview, this is a MediaPipe Talks. If you have multiple like switches or something or containers within your project, it's way more lightweight if you just have one MediaPipe itself and then drag specific hand toxes or different tracking toxes in. For me, I just decided to keep everything in a big project window because I actually wanted to experiment with feeding face tracking parts into certain drum or key audio samples that I already loaded in. But yeah, let's get into it. So first, I have the hand gestures and drums and keys. So this is where I'm really using my hand, both gestures and the hand helpers. So when I say that, the gestures are things like open palm or thumbs up, whereas the other like hand actual like tracking things are kind of like looking at distance or speed of your hand. I use those to alter parameters for both drums and keys. Um, and the way that I think, at least I found most easiest to do this was kind of just go step by step. That's also kind of just the way my brain works. So we have this like handy comment here where basically my general process for all of this is we have our in of where we like, okay, here are all of our hand gestures. I drag that into a null chop right here. And then I use the math chop, where I define the scope as the really specific channel that I want to work with. So in this case, it's hand distance, and I wanted to range that for -0.1 to 2. The negative is just so that any positive value allows me to turn it on, for example. Yeah, so I kind of like redid that formula, I would say, over and over again. You can see like my comments for which channel am I specifically grabbing. And then you just go ahead and drag it to whatever you want to adjust. So, for example, the drums turn on when I have like an open palm hand gesture. Can be right there. Um, yeah, I think that honestly is really the key for me in the interactivity part. I would say, so the second half of my network, basically what we do, because TouchDesigner can't handle multiple audio devices out or audio files out, the way to combine them all so that I can do a nice movie file out recording with a singular chop is to combine them using the math channel. So here I just took my audio file ins and connected them to this math chop, and then connected all of that from this math chop into my all audio out chop. As you can also tell, I'm a big fan of renaming things, but this is just an audio device out chop. Some of the little spectral patterns that you'll notice in the background are created using this audio spectrum base. Happy to share it with anyone if you're specifically interested in that. But I basically just wanted to kind of give a dynamic background to the face tracking poses that I have. So let's say, for example, in this comp, just so we can see it, I don't want to have all the audio getting triggered right now. But basically, if there was sound playing, you would see this. Oh, there we go. The white spectrum's kind of around my head. I wanted to use the natural shapes of the audio spectrums, but change that to emphasize kind of like my face's form in this. Um, yeah, and the way that I got the face tracking mask, that was pretty simple because both the hand tracking and the face tracking toxes have these little outs right here. So I was just able to grab that out and plug it directly into my comp towards the end of the network. Um, yeah, let's recreate that network. So first, let's pretend that you don't already have the MediaPipe toxes downloaded. This is where you would go. Happy to put that link in the comments below. My toxes, so let me kind of go ahead and grab those. I'm gonna put MediaPipe in. Here's me. And let me go ahead and grab the correct hand tracking tox, face tracking tox. All right, that should be it. Now we can go ahead and find the correct ones. Hands, I believe this is it. Let's see. Yep. Okay. Pose, objects, face detector. This is good for me to remember. All right, I think we're set. And go ahead and turn off all of the things that you don't need. So I'm going to turn off everything except these. For detect faces would be if I had multiple people. The first step is to create in so we can see what's actually coming from it. So for this little one, I'm just going to focus on the hand gestures, but you would repeat the same thing for face tracking. So let me just go ahead and I am going to create an in just so we can see what's happening. And I'll go ahead and connect that to the gestures. And now when we zoom in, we can see all these gestures that we want. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a null down. The null is basically just to keep it clean, just in case there's anything that gets lost in translation. I think I've developed that a little bit as a best practice this semester. I'm going to go ahead and lay one more in down, just in case we want to have our helper gestures. And I will also grab a null and put that down. Okay, awesome. So now I'm going to go ahead and rename this hand gesture null, and I'm going to say detail null. Okay. That will just help later on when we're referencing things. You'll see in a second. Okay, so now I'm going to load my audio files in. These are things that I already recorded actually in Logic. I'm going to put some drums in, and then I'm going to name this drums. And then I'm going to copy and paste that, name this keys, find the correct keys file. Okay, cool. So let's actually make a little math, just so that we can have like a way of hearing this in a unified way. So I'm going to go ahead and I made this math channel. As you can see, now we have 4 signals, which makes sense because each audio sample is stereo. I'm going to go ahead and turn to combine chops add. All right, and now I'm going to have audio device out. And now we will be able to hear this. Nice. Okay, so we actually don't need that on for right now, but those were the original samples that I was using. Yeah, okay. So let's go ahead and make it so that when your hand one is an open palm, that it plays the drums. Okay, so I can see here that here's what happens, hand 1, so I can see its values are basically just 0 to 1. Yeah, let's test it. From doing this, I'm pretty sure this threshold is all good, but let's see. So I'm going to go ahead and make this viewer active. I'm going to go ahead and drag hand 1 open palm onto the audio file play, do it as a chop reference, and now I see. So I turned the sound off just because I thought it was going to be a little overwhelming, but as you can see, the blue toggles on and you can see that the audio waves are actually moving. Awesome, we're in good shape. That's interacting in the way that I expected. You can also see over there in the hand tracking. So let's go ahead and do the same thing, but with hand 2, and we're going to make that so that when I put my hand 2 up, that the keys will play. Okay, so hand 2 open palm. Actually, gotta click on the keys. Okay, hand 2 open palm. I'm gonna put that on the play. audio files and keys and put it as a chop reference. Now I have this, so open Palm 1, and now I have this. Oh, there we go. So something to note about the way that MediaPipe represents hand. So it's not necessarily in this case right hand or left hand. It's not like my right hand is only keys, for example, or my left hand is only drums. So for example, here's my left hand is drums, but that's only because the camera saw it first. So if I put this actually up first, so now drums are going, but now keys are left hand. So just know that it's more sequential and it's not necessarily tied to anything. But that looks great. Everything is working the way that it should be. Cool. So let's go ahead and look at some of these more like nuanced gestures. I think one general limitation actually of using TouchDesigner for audio is that there are only so many parameters, as you can see here. If I wanted to do anything like chorus or delay, you actually have to like make your own effects, and that is a little bit more in depth, a little bit more tricky. There are some awesome tutorials on YouTube actually for that I was poking around in, but in the interest of just keeping this project simpler, decided to not do that. So really I'm just using gestures to trigger certain sounds and then play with the speed of the songs, which also of course changes the pitch of the sound. So that's pretty fun. So let's actually use hand distance to change the speed of the keys, for example, in this. Let's use the hand one Y position. So as you can see in our little screen over here, the Y position was actually just showing where the hand is relative to the height of this little tox. So let's use that to control the speed, which is actually going to control the pitch. Okay, so I can see right now that the hand position is only going from 0 to 1 for the midpoint, right? Let's see. Hand 2 works a lot better. This is actually why it's fun. First of all, so important to test. Second of all, I actually did end up using only hands to midpoint Y. I think I'd have to get a little deeper into TD to figure out exactly why that's happening, because both of my hands are actually at the exact, you can see over here, both of my hands, see how you can see they're closer together? They're actually at the exact same distance away from the camera. So you can kind of see on this side over here that when I move this, hand 1 is much smaller values than hand 2. So let's go ahead and use hand 2 so we can create a change that is more noticeable. Okay, so I am going to make this viewer active, and let's kind of experiment and see what it needs. So I'm going to drag this as a chop reference to the speed. So now, right, so we're only really going between 0 and 8, and you're like, okay, well, you probably want to hear what that sounds like. So turn this back on. Okay. Okay, that's a pretty fun effect, but let's say we wanted it more extreme. So I'm going to go ahead and make this not viewer active anymore. I'm actually going to delete this because we're going to use something different. So I'm going to go ahead and put a null and a math down. Okay, so for this math, I only actually want to change the hand to pinch midpoint Y. So let me go ahead and put that over here. Okay, so now any of the things that I rearrange are only going to impact this particular channel. So let's say in the same way that we wanted a 0.1, just so we can, that's its lowest range, so it doesn't accidentally trigger itself, right? We only want it to go there, but let's say we want it to be a little more extreme. So that's actually why I'd put it on 2. The bounds of the screen are really only 1, so I think we could actually, even if we want it to be like more sensitive, make it a little bit lower than 1, then that means that the whole range should I think the way I had it was correct. There we go. So now that little bit of distance will change it so that we can put it and y to h2 y dist. Okay. Now you can see kind of what's happening. Okay. Let's actually go back by 0.9. Okay, so now we can paste it, make that viewer active. Drop reference. Okay, now let's hear what it sounds like. So here's my hands relative to the screen. Awesome. Okay, so I actually would probably just paste that reference for the drums just because I wanted it to actually be in sync when I was doing it. So let's go ahead and copy that reference again. One way I could actually just do this is copy it here and then go up to my drums, speed, and paste it there. And now you can see here that it's all synced together as I do it. And in the name of continuity, to try to make this project, make the audio flow more together, that's kind of what at least I would recommend. Previously, I had actually experimented with trying it to do things at different rates, and then I was like, oh, this, to me, it didn't sound very good, but I trust that anyone else might be able to find something else that I didn't find. So yeah. Okay, so if anyone, this is a pretty simple network recreation, but there's so many things that you can do to move this forward. Here actually is one quick little shout out. Owen Kirby does some really cool tutorials on how to actually add, like, make your own audio delay effects. Yeah, honestly, I would love to recreate this at some point too, and that would be one way to kind of like add on to this project, and then you would have so many more parameters that you could use your hands or your face to adjust. A second area of expansion could be, using all of these other awesome little outputs. So they have you can work with up to 5 faces on this. You can do different pose detections. There's really so many, and when you download the actual MediaPipe talks, there's just quite a lot of different things you can experiment with. And lastly, I think the third one would be if you wanted to only use oscillators. So I was interested in experimenting with voice, and so for example, I had my open mouth trigger only audio tracks. But if you wanted to kind of like work local to TouchDesigner, there are these oscillator chops, and those are really fun. They work very similarly if you're familiar with audio engineering. You have LFOs and filters, and there's lots of like fun ways that you can actually just like work with sound all inside of TouchDesigner. I think that would be a kind of cool to use that constraint as like a design challenge in that sense. Feel free to find me on Instagram at ColbyLG, and yeah, thank you again for watching. I really appreciate it, and let me know if this was helpful.